So yes, let's jump on to our final matte coat. Now I have got this. This is, as you know, I've been using sort of Mr. Hobby lately. This is the sort of new sort of GX.1 the Mr. Colour UV Cut GX. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good stuff about this. Now this is Mr. Colour, so I do believe it's lacquer based, right? So we do want to get out the Mr. Colour thinners, right? Now if you've ever sort of not kind of used a certain type of paint before, I mean generally, you know, we're talking the 50-50 mix, right? But maybe just play around with it a little bit first, kind of actually sort of mix it up, sort of see how it's spraying, see if you've got a nice sort of feathered spray pattern, see what the coverage is like, maybe spray it on an inconspicuous spot, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm kind of going for that 50-50 mix, like I say. Right, always good as well, you know, when you're switching from like lacquers, from say acrylics to lacquers and vice versa, sort of give your airbrush a bit of a clean. I am noticing this did seem a little bit thick then. It seemed to start off thick and then I've sort of mixed it and it seems to have gone all right. Let's have a little spray just to see how it's coming out. That does seem to be not too bad. So I'm just gonna do a little bit just here then, just to see how it is. So I'm just going to start off with that light misty coat. All right, you hardly sort of see that go down. Nice bit of a cut to air. Right, and actually that misty coat is already looking quite matte, which is quite cool. Let's bring you in a little bit closer. Right. Now there is quite a few little pieces to put on top of this, all sorts of antennas and stuff. I just wanted to kind of get a gloss coat down. I have found that because we've used oils for all that weathering on there, even though I've left it for 24 hours to dry, quite easy to sort of smudge, right? So I'm kind of wanting to get this matte coat down to seal in those God, I keep forgetting my words here, to get those oils down and locked in so we don't sort of smudge them. So yeah, I'm coming in with like a normal coat now. Do you know what? I think my air pressure might be a bit high. Right, maybe get it to about 15 or something. Yeah, I mean, because when you come to lacquers, you can bring your air pressure down. So and that seems to be going nicer now. And I'm just giving this a once over. Yeah, so just first time having a go at these paints. Yeah, you're probably talking like about 15 psi, 50-50 mix. I'll just cut to air, and hopefully you can see what I like. This is the thing about when you use sort of new sort of matte varnishes and stuff, is you don't want to see it sort of take away the colour, especially you don't want to see it sort of lighten the colour. Some of the crapper, shall we say, matte varnishes, you know, sorry to name brands here, but Vallejo did like a nasty matte varnish, and it literally kind of put a frosting all over your model. Terrible one that was. Stay well clear of it. But hopefully you can see that first coat, we've got what looks to be a nice matte finish, and there's not like a major colour. I'm not really seeing any sort of colour change, darker or lighter or frosting or anything like that. It's gone down really nice. It's supposed to be UV varnish as well, so far looking quite impressive. So I'm going to go over probably 2 coats or sort that, and then we'll probably move over to those last final lovely bits. Right, all the matte coat has been done, and it really just transforms the model. It really starts to look like what it's going to look like when it's done. I have just gone around and sort of glued on just lots of little bits, antennas and all sorts of those kind of things, sort of basic gluing. But really, when we come around to doing sort of like our pylons or any sort of little bits, let's be careful now, because we've got all these tiny things that can break off. But like, just check, make sure that any of the, because the paint, when you spray the paint, can sort of like fill these holes in, and you know, they might not quite fit, so just check before you start whacking glue on and trying to glue it. If I can just get this lined up, give me a second, there we go. That feels good, nicely lined up. So I've got a little bit of CA glue just on my pot here. We've got probably plenty of leftover cocktail sticks now. Just going to put a bit on. Now I'm going to use super glue only because, and I'm probably just going to stick with super glue. I know I kind of come in with the old Timex cement afterwards, but really things like these weapons and stuff, these are the kind of things that are going to break off, and what you want is, if it's going to break, you do want it to have a clean break. And that's the one thing about super glue, is it'll give you a clean break. So I just want to quickly, a bit quicker than this if I can, get this on, and then as it's on, you know, kind of just quickly sort of get that mark on eyeball and make sure it's kind of at the perfect angle. So I'm just, you know, closing one eye, getting at the perfect angle, holding it in position. Right, just to check that's okay there. Right, and that seems to be just kind of nicely, lightly glued with some super glue. I know it's probably going to be a little bit easier to break, but at least it will have a clean break. And then maybe put it on the table and just check. Yes, that's looking good. So you want to do that with all them, and actually it does really kind of start to look the part when you've got getting it all nice and beefy. What I also want to sort of show you is we had, I'm just trying to be careful with this. Right, let's bring this in. I did forget to put in our little glass part that's supposed to go here, but actually it's kind of better to come in with micro crystal clear. It's a really nice technique, this is, right? You've got to leave it a bit of time to dry, but yes, micro crystal clear is supposed to dry to a really nice glass finish. So we're taking advantage of that, get a nice blob on the end of our cocktail stick, and all I'm going to do is put it into the hole. Right, maneuver it around so it touches the edges, like so, and then slowly pull out. And what we should have there is a nicely, perfectly circle, or whatever that shape is, teardrop shape. And when that dries, it's going to look like glass and look a lot better than, say, the parts that you get with the kit. We now draw our attention back to our cockpit section. So yes, we can now start to come in and remove all of this stuff, bearing in mind that we have got that microcrystal clear just down here, which is wet, so let's try not to touch that. I've got a bit of blue tack on here, so I'm probably going to have to do a little bit of tidying up just there, maybe with a paintbrush, or come in with maybe the Geheldi airbrush, really nice fine 0.2mm needle, right? Maybe tidy that up. I am seeing that there's a bit of wash in there, right? I don't know if you can sort of see that on camera. There's a bit of wash in there, maybe actually kind of cleaning that up. A little bit of a tidy. Let's see if we can actually maybe tidy up a little bit of that while we're here, because it might not have had the matte coat go on it. Yeah, I mean, some of that is rubbing out, but yeah, we're probably just gonna have to come in with maybe an airbrush or a paintbrush on that kind of basic stuff there. Then we have the canopy mask. Now this is where we want to be careful removing them. Now I will say, I have had people say, oh, it peels up the paint and stuff sometimes. If you ever come to the point where you're actually removing these masking tape, right, and it peels up the paint, it means you are whacking down your gloss coats, your main base colors, your primers. You're putting them down way too thick, right? So I've just kind of got underneath that with a blade, right, and we've peeled that up just enough for us to then come in with some tweezers and just slowly take your time going around peeling it up. Don't just rip it off, because even if you've done a good spray job, you could sort of peel up your paint. Right, so as you can see, I'm just going around and just carefully peeling that back. Now fingers crossed we've got no problems. If we did, I mean, this is an open canopy, so we could get cocktail sticks in there and maybe clean any inside bits, right? I do always like to sort of come in with, you know, just a moist, to start off with a moist cotton wool bud, right? And just, you know, give our window a clean, because there might have been a bit of seepage with the wash, and it's got underneath the masking tape, maybe some bits, maybe the masking tape has left a bit of residue behind. If you're happy with its nicely looking shiny, which, you know, that is looking pretty sort of nice and shiny just there. If not, you can come along with some pure IPA and rub that on, just being careful around the edges and not using IPA if you've dipped your canopy, right, because you'll reactivate whatever gloss it was what you used dipping your canopy. So I'll go off and get all them off. We do have our ejector seat just here, which does just drop in there quite nicely. So that is potentially just you know, coming along with maybe some CA glue just to put on the bottom, right, and just drop it in there, and that should just kind of hold in there quite nicely. I mean, to be fair, you know, this fits quite nice, that you could virtually sort of leave that unglued. I mean, even just slightly tilting this, it isn't moving, so you could, yeah, you could leave that unglued. And then, as you can see, I've got my canopy just here, which really does start to set this all off. Now we have these rocket pods, which I'm not totally sure. If you remember, I was deciding whether or not to go off and get some aftermarket resin parts for it. I have, as you can see, left not put any wash on the front here, because I don't really want to bring out this detail here, because as I've said, we've had to like cut that back and sand that back, and it doesn't, the detail, you know, it's not very consistent. So leaving that unwashed, it don't look too bad. I still might go off and get some, but just for now, right, I don't want to glue this on. So what I'm going to do, right, is I'm just going to start breaking off some blue tack. Now you don't need a lot at all, you know. I'm just going to literally try and pinch a little bit off just here. I mean, that's possibly just a little bit too much still, and just in our little holes just here, we can just try and just stick a bit in that hole like so. Right, let's get another tiny bit off for the other one. This is also good if, say, I don't know, I mean, for example, a nice big A10 with all the weaponry that you can have with that. Some box sets come with loads and loads of weapons, right, and you may want to sort of, you know, mix and match now and then, sort of change your display, right? And this is good for stuff like this. Now I've already tested to make sure it fits nicely, so this little bit of blue tack, fingers crossed, right? I mean, you might have to adjust it, but let's just try and get it in the hole. Yeah, almost there we go. And what should technically happen is that little bit of blue tack should bite hopefully just enough. Not quite just enough, maybe might need a little bit more blue tack in there, or maybe just adjust it, but hopefully you sort of get the picture of just getting that blue tack just right, a bit of playing around, and you should, fingers crossed, eventually have this. Oh, this one's I'm gonna have to play around with this one just to save time on camera, but I've done the same this side, and they do sit nice and freely. And we can take that off, and if I want to kind of put different weapons on or put better ones on, you know, I've got that option. Now we've got some navigation lights. Now I did want to sort of show you this because I had a little bit of problems getting the opposite side on. Basically, once we've cut these off, I mean, always good to use tweezers, right? Just sort of quickly test fitting them, and you know, they're just slightly not quite fitting in there. Trust me, they don't fit in there. Saves me faffing about. It's kind of what I'd basically do here is maybe just slightly shave. Now we are at the end stage here, right? So we don't want to be overdoing it. If it's not fitting and we've got to trim a bit, really just, I know it's probably a lot of fiddly, kind of like messing about trying to get this to fit and stuff, but really just test fit, right? The last, you don't want to be having gaps at this stage, right? Because you definitely don't want to be getting out the filler, filling, sanding, scribing, all that nasty stuff. We definitely don't want to be doing it at this stage. So yes, as you can see, it's just a lot of that good old test fit, and I know it's small pieces and it's fiddly and all this kind of stuff, right? But just to speed things up, let's just pretend that this actually fits now after, you know, a bit of trimming with sanding sticks. I do like to just kind of use the blade and just scrape a bit off. But what I'm going to do here, just to show you where we're going with this, is get out a drill. This is, it's not 1 mil, right? It's maybe like a 6 mil drill bit ish, right? And we just want to drill into this about like maybe 1 mil, 2 mil, but again we want to be careful, right? Because when we drill into small bits like this, just do a bit, make sure it's center, right? And also make sure that you're not sort of, you know, going off to one side and you're going to come out the sides. You want to keep it nice and dead center, right? So basically just drill a little bit, just check that you're more good, you're not coming out the sides, right? And once you get to a fairly, as I say, like about a 1-2 mil depth, which we'll get to in a sec. I've got my depth now of about 1 mil, 2 mil. Right, I like to come across with my navigation lights. I use the same colour every time. It's Evil Sun Scarlet and Warp Stone Glow from Citadel. Two nice colours for our red or green. Obviously give them a good shake. Right, and what we can do just here now is get a nice fine paintbrush. I've got a 00 just here. And as you might have already guessed, right, no need to do any thinning here. Right, we're just now going to, if I could get you to focus, come on, focus, there we go. Just nicely, where we've drilled that hole, kind of almost, not paint it, but fill it with green paint. Right, and then hopefully what you will see is when we look through the clear part, you should see that nice bit of what would be, say, a green bulb or something like that. Now once that's dry, right, I will come across as well to just enhance the whole thing, right, and get some of our what's this, Storm Host Silver, right. Obviously I'm going to wait for this to dry, but I'm just going to paint this on. I'm not going to fully paint it on, I'll do a bit where the green isn't. Right, but if I just sort of paint in the middle, right, and avoid going right up to the sides, right, I don't want to go right up to the sides, I don't want any of this silver oozing out, and then we should have like a nice background to it as well. But I'll wait for that green to dry so I can just paint right across there, and then we should be good to glue. Yes, I've got to go off now and get this to fit properly as well, but it's just for the filming for you guys. Right, I've got that to fit so snug, it's sitting in there all by itself. Yes, micro crystal clear may be sort of like the way to go if you are say a beginner. You know, you don't want to sort of mess this bit up. I just find that using stuff like with my crystal clear, you've kind of got to paint it on the piece, then push the piece in. But with Tamiya extra thin cement, if you're nice and careful, steady hand, we should be able to just literally just kind of like touch an edge, and that would virtually just flow right in there. Getting a little bit on the paintwork, not a big deal. This Tamiya thin cement, it does evaporate really quickly before it can really sort of damage the surface of any sort of paint work. maybe while it's in there now, maybe just a, ooh, I've got to be very careful, almost knock that out. Maybe a bit of a touch and a push, maybe a slight little adjust if need be. Maybe I'll just come underneath and make sure the underneath is good. Right, just so as we've got no steps, I'm just checking for, just on here. Right, and that's looking pretty good, as you can see. And yes, you then sort of see that green bulb sort of come through. Looks all pretty cool. And now here she is, basically done enough to finish this video off. Maybe one or two things I might sort of do off camera, i.e. if you remember, we've got the 2-inch Royal Navy rockets. I have ordered in, if you are interested, they are in the store. I have ordered in the 12-inch Royal Navy rockets if you wanted to upgrade yours, right? Do you know what I mean? By leaving that black on the end and not actually putting a wash in there, it does kind of hide, shall we say, the not so good detail of the kit part. You know, you could get away with it actually, in all honesty, but that's just on there with blue tack. I did again use a little bit of blue tack just on our canopy just here, just to hold that into place, just a bit of blue tack, rather than using glue, so you can open it, close it at will. Other than that, I might put some removable flight tags on as well, maybe. So yeah, there she is, all finished. Now I must say I do actually really like the finish. What was it, I did the Phantom, the GR.2 Phantom, and I think I used extra acrylic paint on that one. I do actually prefer the Mr. Hobby Aquarius paint. It does seem to be a better matching colour, especially the grey, so I'm quite happy with how that's turned out. But yeah, let's have a little quick rundown of how this all went. The main feature that we were sort of looking at with this kit was this here is supposed to be, you know, it's quite hard to tell actually, but it's this panel line, right, running across there in sort of like a square shape. That was actually a join. That's where we spent a lot of time sort of doing filling, sanding and scribing, and hopefully you can sort of look at that and be like, you could not tell there was a join in that area, right? And that was the whole beauty of sort of really taking the time in that area. It just looks like it's just all one piece. It's so hard to actually really tell. So really glad I kind of tackled that. First time using the Mr. Colour UV cuts, both gloss and matte. Probably going to be my go-to now for things like that. Rather cool. As for aftermarket parts that we used, we did go off and use, just in the cockpit section here, we did use all that supposedly 3D decals. I don't know how well you could possibly see that in there. I didn't quite like them. I was sent some Red Fox type decal kind of instrument display panels, and they just seem way better. This whole sort of those 3D kind of decals that I used, not a big fan of, at least that manufacturer, sorry to say. Pitot tube, right? I mean, you gotta love a nice proper Pitot tube just on there. Just looks way more sort of pointier, straighter, yeah, rather than the kind of the big thick ones you sort of end up getting. All the usual Edard photo etch that you would get in there. As you can see, all those seat belts, you know, you could beat that kind of stuff. Really cool. What else did we use aftermarket parts? Oh yeah, and then we got all the inside the wheel wells. We had all that kind of photo etch going on inside there. Really kind of makes that look rather cool. Other than that, yes, sorry, I keep getting bits on it. Other than that, you know, the weathering stage did take a bit of time, sort of doing a bunch of weathering, really concentrating on kind of using, I tried to kind of make it nice and easy. Though that oil technique that I've just been showing you, and using the Mr. Weathering line of stuff, that kind of stuff, there's no really going off and sort of getting out alderless thinners and feather things in and playing with things. It was some really nice easy tactics of just apply it and dry brush it off, and the same with the oils, kind of apply it, dry brush it off. Hopefully you could see as well, if I kind of maybe zoom you out a little bit, is the top side is looking rather kind of lighter and more bleached, and as we sort of rotate this, you'll hopefully see the paintwork just stops looking so lighter and bleached, so it's sort of showing how, you know, it's more on the top that we did that oil stuff just all over the top just here, kind of doing that kind of bleaching with the oils, as well as sort of getting those decals having that bit of oil on them. It just makes them look less clean and tidy. Hopefully you can just sort of notice with that, and that kind of sort of finishes it. The kit itself, I mean, yeah, it was good. I mean, actually the surface details ended up being rather good. You know, the fit side of it, I mean, it was good. I wouldn't say it was brilliant, I wouldn't say it was flawless, but it wasn't terrible. We wasn't messing about with some nasty fit issues. It was all round just pretty damn good. The one disappointing thing about the kit, if I've got to say anything, it's these rocket pods. I mean, to go off and sort of, you know, chop off these rockets and stuff to turn it into the 2-inch Royal Navy rockets, that was a bit of a shame. Would have been nice if they actually put some proper ones in there, but you know, it is what it is. You know, that's why we have lovely aftermarket parts. So all in all, hopefully you've learned a lot from this series and everything that we did in this, and hopefully you've learned a lot with this. Hopefully you're going to go out there and do some Harriers yourself. I've really enjoyed this. Can't wait to put this next to my what is it, the Phantom GR.2. should look quite cool in my display case. So that is sadly it for this series of the Kinetic Model Kits Harrier. If you haven't seen all the episodes, go check them out on the Genesis Models website. Other than that, hopefully you've enjoyed. So until next time, my name's Boy Waldron, this is Genesis Models, and I'll catch you in the next series.